Welcome to Vets to PM's Military Transition Academy podcast, the show where we discuss how to succeed in transitioning from the military service to the civilian workforce. This show and the academy it represents helps veterans transition into meaningful, lucrative post-service careers. Your primary host is Eric Doc Wright, PhD, certified manager, military veteran, serial founder, best-selling business author, philosopher, linguist, and coach. Your other host is Jeremy Burdick, project management professional, scrum master, product owner, and retired Air Force chief, and the current COO of Vets to PM and the Professional Development Unit University, where we will interview veterans successful in corporate America and business to bring you nuggets of wisdom every episode to make you more successful. Next, let's introduce today's guest. Today's special guest is David Jones, a retired Army National Guard member, father of 4, engaged to a lovely fiancée of Amy of 8 years. And he's got his MBA, and he got it through the post 9/11 GI Bill and leveraging the VOC rehab program. He's an entrepreneur, business owner, and does consulting work for VBOC, which is vboc.org. And he's a program manager for a project management firm overseeing millions of dollars in federal contracts. And I can't wait for you to get to meeting. So we are going to get this started right now.
So I kind of had a little bit of a mixed traditional thing here. So I did 20 years total, 10 active, 10 guard. My primary job when I came in was a forward observer, so call in and artillery and airstrikes. I figured that'd be very useful in the real world when I get out, But actually like 8 of my years was spent in the recruiting side of the house too. So that's where a lot of my active duty time came from, as well as a small stint deployment down in Cuba and whatnot. But other than that, my last 10 years was actually in the guard side of the house. So just doing the weekends. And that's when I started to use my time and use my benefits to go back to school to, kind of work on myself too. So luckily, I had a little bit of work there where I was able to transition out onto the civilian side while I was still in and serving part-time. So I got out in 2019. Last unit was nice, fairly close to home, higher level stuff, integrated like, air quarters and stuff like that too. But it was a fun time. I really loved it. It was tough to leave the guys. That was probably the hardest part. But I think I was ready, Yeah,
too true. I mean, when most of the veterans that we talk to, it's not necessarily the service that they are, or the job or the location. It's the brotherhood. It's the feeling of being connected to that tribe of people that you truly miss, and then having that sense of purpose. So what did you do to help you build that network so that when you were taking that step out, that you had something to kind of reach back and grab a hold of?
Yeah, well, honestly, I didn't realize it till years later. I was a little bit naive getting out. I thought my skill set, all my time in HR, recruiting, retention, all the schooling I had 3 years of college at that point, but never got my degree. So I figured that the civilian side would be able to see, all the work that I've done. I've been managing people since I was 20. I had a ton of experience on that side of the house. So I thought. So when I hit the real world and I started applying for positions, that's when I realized how much they actually value the education side of it, and not so much the military side, So I basically had to reprove myself all over again. And like I said, I was kind of naive. I didn't realize that I had such a big network of veterans and that they were connected, especially on the guard side, because, they're already integrated into the civilian side. So they're already, state police officers, politicians, tons of people in good positions to help me out. And I didn't even realize it at the time. And it wasn't until I got a corporate recruiting gig when I got out, that was the only one that would basically hire me coming out of the service. After 10 years of the active side of the house, they basically said, hey, commission only type work is what we'll give you. And if you can prove your worth, you can make a lot of money. And if you don't, you start. It's kind of that, sink or swim mentality. So that's how I had to cut my teeth on the civilian side coming back. But growing that network from there really helped out as well, realizing how important it is to have not only the veteran side of the house, which was even bigger than I thought it was, because it reached outside of just the guys in my unit. The veteran community is a total community. Doesn't matter what branch, what time, that you serviced. The more I get out there in the veteran community, the more I realize how supportive it is. And it's really been the backbone of everything I've done since then.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, in fact, David, I'm a member of the Florida Association of Veteran-Owned Businesses. We're a big supporter of them at Vets to PM, both company and me. Do a lot of business-to-business stuff down here in Florida with them. And we take veteran business owners from all over the country, right? So it's that network. And so to your point, once you're in the veteran mafia, my Army buddy Stu, the president of FAVOP, likes to say we're the Kevin Bacon of business networking, right? So literally you can call Stu and say, hey, dude, I need a website developer, or hey, man, I need a biz dev guy, or hey, I need an HR professional, rent the HR professional, and they need to be in Arizona. And literally within about 6 phone calls or 6 degrees, like, Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees, we've got people. And it's really cool to know that. And the people that are recommending you or that you're recommending are brothers and sisters. So they're not dirt bags, right? Like if I tell somebody, hey, David's going to give you a call and he's going to solve your problem, they can take it to the bank that David's going to give them a call and David's going to solve a problem because Doc sent him, right? And when I say, hey, tell him, David, when you get there, brother, tell him Doc sent you, I'm putting my name on that, right? So you can have confidence that whatever recommendation you make or whoever you're going to recommend, they're going to go crush it for you, and you're going to look just as good as they did when they're hitting balls over the back of the fence, right? So how do you network? Because we hear it in TAPS. Make sure you network. Make sure you LinkedIn. Make sure you resume. And it's like some of us haven't done that in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, right? When I got out, there was no such thing as LinkedIn. Al Gore was still inventing the internet, man, right? So like, what was I supposed to do? So what are some tactics that guys and gals listening could apply like tomorrow, even if they're introverts, to do this network thing?
Yeah. And honestly, it is something that takes time to build up, like a legitimate network. And LinkedIn is by far my biggest piece. And I have kind of an unfair advantage because I was in the corporate recruiting world. I ended up with connections all across the country because of that position I was in. So it extended my LinkedIn, capacity so much more just because of that. And really that's been my backbone. But I told people, I said, that took me 8 years to build. Like LinkedIn isn't something you can build overnight. You have to start it and then work and then work and then work at it, like to try to build that in. And yeah, you could get the paid service, so you can send out more emails and stuff like that too, but what I tell people every time, and I know you guys are big on the Vets to PM does a lot with the Skill Bridge program, and I also do a lot with it too with one of the companies that I own as well. We leverage the heck out of that. But what I tell the people in Skill Bridge, I'm like, even if you don't take this on as an internship, and maybe we'll get to this later, but even if you don't take this on as an internship, I said, use my network that I've established over the years. Like, don't be hesitant. If you go out there and you notice that someone has a connection to me, ask me to make the introduction to you. I'm happy to do it. Like, leverage the people that are here willing to help you. That's the biggest thing. Use other people and what they've already built. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to build it from scratch and then wait until your network is there. Use other people's network is the best advice I can give.
How generous is that? I mean, I just did it last week. I got a request from a buddy. Hey man, my boy is out of the service. He's now in the Veteran Mafia Club, right? He's the son of a vet. And so, hey, what's he doing now? What's he want to do? Tell me about his chops. Has he got any certs? Has he got any education? And I just took a couple notes, hit a couple people. I don't know, about 4 or 5 people on LinkedIn. Read Kathy McLadden, my career services gal, hit him on LinkedIn and said, hey, if I had a guy that looked like this, is anybody on this traffic interested? And every single one of them to a T, because I knew who I was reaching out to. And I had a chat with the guy. So I knew kind of what the capability match was or was not. And of course, they all came back and they're like, Doc, I'm in the market for that kind. I'm like, dude, stand by, resume inbound, right? Like, yeah. How cool is that, right? So I love the generosity of, hey, use my network. Now, I caught something really cool, right? Serial founder. I've started several things. Some of them have failed. So I learned how not to start things like that again, ever. But you said one of the companies. So you're quite the industrious lad, dude. So tell us, like, so we went from guard, retired. I got all this corporate recruiting experience. So what have you been doing? And like, what's the portfolio of companies that you have and do SkillBridge with?
Yeah, sure. So I'll kind of, I guess, backtrack a little bit. So as I was kind of starting to transition out, like I said, I was only part-time in the Guard then. So I started to go back to school, and I used my post 9/11 to get my associate's degree in business. Then I got my bachelor's degree in business. And then I ended up getting my master's through Voc Rehab. And there's something that I'd like to take a second to really talk about there real quick. A lot of people don't know if you're eligible for Voc Rehab. As long as you have any time left on your post 9/11, even if it's a day, I tell people save at least a month. You can technically roll over your post 9/11 into whatever Voc Rehab approves. So I had an extra 2 years approved to pay for my full master's. So I had 6 years plus of schooling that got paid for by the service. So, that was huge for me. That was really my springboard to get me into a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now, because once people saw that now on my resume, I was no different. I've been a serial entrepreneur since I was 22. I think I bought my first, business. I started a bed and breakfast, bought a mansion, flipped it, turned it. And that was the start of it. Then it was a coffee business. Then it was a consulting business. And now it's grown into a logistics company that delivers like craft beer, wine, and spirits. And that's a veteran-owned company. It's a benefit corp that gives back a percent of profits to veterans as well, veterans and their families. That's the mission. So that's one of them. But the way that I got into that one was because I was at a VA function. I was working at a nonprofit, a veteran nonprofit that helped at-risk and homeless veterans find employment, which is, a little bit more of my background in trying to help veterans get into it and the struggles and barriers that they have transitioning as well. So I was at a VA event, and there was another table there, this logistics company. They were just starting out, and they didn't know how to get their foot in the door with a lot of their stuff. They found out I was in school getting my master's degree in business. They found out what I had for a connection. The fact that they were veteran owned and they had that mission to give back as a benefit corporation, they're like, well, how do we do this? How do we do that? So they hired me as a consultant. And because I didn't have a lot of money, they gave me shares. So I ended up with 30% of the company just from working as, a consultant for them.
Too cool, man. What a cool story.
Yeah, you got all kinds of stuff going on. We're gonna have you on here a couple times and like break it down. Like what did you learn as an entrepreneur? What not to do, what to do. I mean, we could go anywhere with this.
I'd love to do that. Like I said, I am a serial entrepreneur. It was in my blood. Both my parents own their own businesses. I was raised there. That's where I trained. I've been working, at those businesses since I was a young kid. And I learned, like you said, what works, what doesn't work. What looks solid ends up failing, and what looked like a great idea might end up failing too. So just that, that risk management piece of it, where just, it's the competition out there. It's like playing chess. You see everything out there the same as everybody else. How are you going to be better than the other competition? So I love the competitive nature of, entrepreneurship. Really is what it is. So but yeah, so, the logistics company, I did that for a couple of years, ran it, handed it off, went back to the corporate world a little bit just to, work a little bit more, get a little bit more, revenue boost up, a little bit more stuff that I could use to invest in some other businesses. I'm actually closing on a storage unit up in Maine next week. So buying a storage unit there, that's one of the other ones. So, and then I do a lot of consulting. So you talked about the veteran-owned business. So the VBOX centers, right, through the SBA, I do consulting for them as well. So we have like a Boots to Business class coming up, I think June 5th. So I'm giving a presentation there on like business formations and stuff. So I do that consulting on the side too for them.
Wow.
Man, that is too cool.
How do people get in contact with you there, David?
Oh, sorry, Mike.
Like if they wanted to get that counseling and kind of and pick your brain on some of that, how would they get a hold of you and how would they contact you for that?
Yeah, so that's the thing. So these VBOC centers, so they're regional centers, right? And they kind of work like through the SBA, but basically you just reach out to your local VBOC center. If you're an entrepreneur that's looking to start a business or already started a business and you want coaching advice, it's a free service that's sponsored by the government. So basically you just sign up for the programs, right? They take you through it. They connect you with an advisor, a counselor like myself, another consultant. And literally we just kind of work with you an hour here, an hour there. And it's a free service. Like people should, really leverage like some of these programs that are out there right now to help, veterans transition, not only like the post 9/11 that everybody knows about, but there's still a lot of stuff about that program that people don't understand either. Like I was even approved for like the self-entrepreneurship option through Voc Rehab. They were going to pay to start my business. But when I weighed it out and I went through everything, I'm like, they're going to pay me X. I can make Y on my housing allowance because I live, close to Boston, Mass, so I get that higher housing allowance, and I'm going to do that for 2 years tax-free. I'm like, I'm just going to use that money to start the business as opposed to what they're going to give me to start it. So that's why I ended up just going for the degree.
Hey, so David, we'll have your contact information, but I would, so it's live TV, brothers. You can say no, but I'd ask you to sleep on it before you do. Every month we have at FAVOB, we have virtual conferences like this, where experts come in and talk to the cats. We have, 350 members all over Florida now. So in Florida, there's 180,000 plus veteran-owned businesses, and we generate about $7 billion a year in revenue, right? So the state loves us, yeah? So
that's awesome.
It would be great, dude, for you to come in and talk to the group about the VBOC and that kind of stuff, because, I'm familiar with SBA. I'm familiar with SCORE. I recommend those folks. I'd never even heard of the VBOC, dude. So you taught me my one new thing for the day. You know what I mean? That's cool.
Yeah. And for everybody out there that's listening in MTA Nation, it's vboc.org, right? And that's the starting place. That's brick one. Go look at that website, sign up for some of those events, and leverage. And I think, David, you really kind of hit something, kind of a repeating theme, at least that I'm picking up, is it's that education piece, whether it's paid education or you go out and do the research yourself. So I know you said that the military experience was good, but on the civilian side, you saw education play a huge role. Talk to me a little bit about what you saw with that.
Yeah, like I said, when I first got out, I thought it was going to be easier than it was, right? So I really had to reprove myself all over again. My 10 years of management experience, out the window. All my skills and handling myself under pressure, yeah, out the window. They didn't care about it, honestly. So I literally had to start from scratch again, coming back in. And then I kept getting turned down for jobs because they're like, you don't have a degree. I'm like, oh, I have the education, I have the real world training, I have, I just don't have the actual degree. I have 160 credits, but I never got a piece of paper. They're like, yeah, we need the piece of paper. Literally is what it came down to. So then I'm like, why stop there? If I can get my bachelor's, why not go for my MBA? So then I got my MBA. And then even from that, I'm like, what else can I do? Like, so then I actually just got my Series 65. It's a financial advisor's license for a multitude of reasons. One is just like a thing that I could do to consult if I wanted to, but I'm not even looking for it for work, but because I want to invest. So step one was like, and we might be getting way off topic here, but step one for me has always been, how am I going to retire? I don't want to be my parents and work till I'm 75 and keep having to work because I don't have a retirement, right? So the pension piece was one of it. So I got the pension knocked out, right? So then it's, how can I make enough money in retirement accounts to retire? Or how can I buy enough businesses to have that, cash on cash returning revenue on a monthly basis where I don't have to trade hours for dollars? When can I just travel wherever I want to go and make money no matter what? So that's always been the long-term goal for me. So that's why I got my Series 65 as well, because instead of being like, I don't know if you guys know much about like being an accredited investor or a qualified investor, but you have to make over 200 grand a year for at least 2 years with an expectancy to keep doing that. And you need to have over $1 million in net assets, not including your house. That's tough for most people to get, right? So there's a backdoor legislation way in there to say, if you're educated enough, you can still invest in the things that people that have all this wealth invest in now. And so if I got my Series 65, I can become an accredited investor and invest in opportunities that I wouldn't otherwise be able to invest in. So another way where I could take some money that I can earn and put it to use so it's working for me and I'm not working, just hour over hour to make this. So again, education. But it's to the point now where I don't apply for jobs anymore, really. People are calling me, recruiters are calling me because they see the profile. And I'm no different than I was before I got my degrees. I'm the same guy. I have a hard knocks education on business, by growing up in it. I honestly learned maybe 3% of the stuff I know from school, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, and obviously you've used it a couple times as that word leveraging, right? Leveraging your time for education, certifications, licenses. What it does is it's those conversations you don't have to have. You don't have to prove yourself, kind of like what you said. It was not 10 years of my experience vaporized. I now have a certification that says, hey, a civilian organization has legitimized all that experience and knowledge and stamped it with an approval, whether it was a degree, a certification, or a license. It means something. It's a stake in the stand that you can stand on and measure yourself off of, an accomplishment. So I think that's repeated itself quite a few times with you and I'm digging it. Like I'm picking up on it, and I feel like you're a man of many angles that's completely working it. So well done. Realistic expectations.
Yeah. And especially in a TLDR world, right? Like, hey, I've got this experience. I've got this, I've got that. You just show somebody a credential and they're like, oh, okay, you must be one of those, right? Oh, accredited investor. Do you have the smarts? Do you have all these assets that have the smarts? Well, this is the conventional way to do it. Or you can show me a license or a certification that says you have the smarts. I mean, so, Jeremy and I talk with people all the time and argue about the value of certificates and licenses and whatever. And I talk to guys that, hey, man, I'm 42. I just retired, 20 plus out of the Navy. I ain't getting my education. I gave it away to my kids. Like, that's cool, man. But just to understand, dude, is the piece of paper is required. You're not winning that argument. The HR folks don't care. Their piece of paper on the checklist says you got to have the piece of paper and they got to check it off. And if they can't check it off, they can't hire you. So get the pieces of paper. It maybe doesn't mean you're a great this or a great that, but you don't have to have the conversation trying to justify your way into something. They say, hey, do you have the thing? You say, yep, here's my ticket. Punch. Now let's have a real conversation.
Without a doubt, it definitely opens the doors and makes it a lot easier. But one thing I'll say to people right now is, don't get demoralized because it takes years to get this stuff, right? Short of going for like a PMP certification, which is something I highly recommend to people because that field is so wide open, you can do almost anything with it. So I highly recommend anybody that's even interested in it to pursue that as well. But the thing is, don't get discouraged if you don't have the degree yet. Go get experience too, because you're going to need experience as well, especially if you're going to want those management level roles. They don't care if you've already managed people. Did you do it in the industry? And that's where you have to prove yourself. So even if you got in at a lower level, or even if you saw a job posting that said you need a bachelor's degree, apply anyway. Sometimes, you'll get rejected right off the bat. It's an automatic no-go. But there's other ones where it's just it's nice to have, but we'll hire you anyway. So always apply. Who cares? Shoot for the moon.
Yeah. Timing and opportunity are like those weird things that you can't always put your thumb on. Yeah, it's better if you have the degree, but you just might hit the one job post that nobody applied for. They need somebody today. So there's always chance on your side. Sorry, Doc, I stepped on you. What were you?
No, not at all, dude. And then again, like what you're hearing from David, gang, if you're not watching the podcast, you're listening out there in MTA Podcast Nation, is that the dude's hustle, right? Like, hey, somebody says I can't, I'm going to figure out how to get a ticket so I can get in the front door, and then I'm going to go crush it and do exactly what I wanted to do anyway, right? So I think that's key, that he is talking about that hustle and taking the shot on the goal, right? Make them deflect the puck, but put the puck in there to make them deflect it. So if you're finding people shutting the door in your face because they say, do you have a piece of paper? And you say no, and they shut the door, well, then go start a degree somewhere. Go take the very first intro to literature class or something in a 2-year degree or a bachelor's degree, right? And then put on your resume that your 4-year bachelor's degree from the university of whatever is in progress and you expect to graduate this month and year. Now, at least you can get in the conversation and they could say, so David, tell me about your degree. What classes are you taking? What's your GPA? I mean, if they even ask that stuff, right? You can at least say, hey, it's in progress. I'm trying to meet the metric. Now tell me no.
Yeah. And I'll tell you that, I forget who it was. I ran into somebody, having a conversation a few years ago. And what stood out to them wasn't the fact that I had degrees. It's that I pursued them so late in life, where most people would just say, that part of my life's over. I'm not 20 years old anymore. I'm not either. I'm a guy that's got 4 kids, right? I'm always working at least 2 jobs and I'm always going to school. So there's no excuse, and there's no I'm too old, it's too late sort of thing. Just keep going. As long as they see you're willing to progress yourself, even right now, technically I'm retired right from the Army, but I'm not retired. I still got 20 good years in me anyway. Right. So as long as people see that I'm investing in myself, well, why would somebody go back to school if they don't plan on continuing to work for the next 10, 20 years? Why would they do that if they weren't going to do it? So again, it kind of takes away that age discrimination thing too, for guys that did put in like 20 years. It kind of helps get that off the table too, to be like, why would I invest time in myself to make myself better if I wasn't doing this for a reason? So yeah, just like you said, Doc, just go back, show you're progressing, show you're working on it. I think that's key.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think you're hitting on another part that veterans are exquisitely good at, and that's learning things, right? Becoming a lifelong learner. Now, that doesn't mean you don't find people who don't do it, but in your case, taking and utilizing your time, right? And making sure that you're doing something, whether it's a certification, a license, education, or, just about anything. When we talk to a lot of our guests, we like to ask them about like professional reading as well. Do you do a lot of professional reading? What's one of the books that just jumps out of your mind is like one of the pivotal things that helped you out?
It's funny. It's usually one book leads me to another. Like I do a lot of audiobook stuff because I always like to be learning no matter what I'm doing. And because I'm so busy between working jobs and consulting in school and whatnot, the only time I usually get to sit down and read is when I'm driving in the car, which isn't when I can physically read. So I get audiobooks, right? So I'm an audiobook guy. I literally just power through hours of audiobooks every day, and anything that really just interests me, because half of it's an escape, half of it's to learn. So really, when I decided I wanted to get into investing in like storage units, self-storage units, well, I'm not going to be a blind investor coming in here. I'm going to learn as much as I can about this business to be successful. So I literally just devoured as much content as I could on self-storage. And it's the same thing anytime I get into any type of topic. If it's certain type of business structures or something like that, I just devour it as much as I can retain. And then move on to something else. So never stop learning, and then go back and revisit it, because the second time you see something, you're going to look at it with a different set of eyes, especially if you got some experience in it. You're going to see it differently. You're going to hear it differently the second time going through it. So, it's not a one and done thing either.
And I love the fact that you're employing technology to help you. Hey, I'm still consuming the knowledge. I'm just sticking it in my noggin in a different channel. I'm not physically reading it, but I'm hearing it. Right? Same stuff. I'm watching videos. So you're consuming all this content. You're learning about whatever topic, how to get your Series 65 or whatever. But it doesn't necessarily mean, hey, I got to sit in a traditional classroom for hours on end, right? You can learn in lots of different ways, right? So people say, I don't read. Well, listening to audiobooks, you're not physically reading, but you're getting the knowledge. You're just doing it through your ears instead of your eyes. I mean, so employ tech, multitask.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point there. Devour it any way you can, whatever works best for you. You know yourself better than anybody else. Nobody says you have to read to learn, right? I learned a lot of my stuff through videos and audiobooks because, when I grew up, I had ADD and dyslexia. School was very hard for me. I almost flunked out. I almost didn't graduate high school, right? So you're talking from a kid who was like most likely to flunk out of school to a kid who's got, all these degrees now. So again, don't take what people stamped you as when you were young as, what you're capable of and not capable of. Just find out that you work differently, find out the best way that you work and leverage it, right? Pick the path that interests you. As long as you pick something interesting in life, you're going to enjoy life a lot more, and you're going to be more successful at whatever you do. So follow your passion and find a way to make money at it.
Yeah. That's one of those, like, it's not work if you enjoy doing it kind of thing. I love it. Yeah. I think any of our listeners are going to chuckle at this point, just out of the sheer, when we ask that question. I think audiobooks are becoming more and more the thing, because you can multitask. So I think the last few guests we've had is like, I don't have time to really read a whole lot. Why? Because you guys are out there kicking butt, right? Now, if your eyes and hands are available, they're working on something. So it's probably not grabbing a book and doing that, but you're listening when you do have some free time. And the head is probably pretty heavy by the time it's nighttime. So you're not reading in bed a whole lot. But needless to say, when we talk about everybody's not going to necessarily have the same launch pad, the same opportunities, the same scenarios, the same, I guess, landscape, if you will. So what kind of advice for like expectation management would you give to somebody that's transitioning that maybe didn't prepare as well as you did?
I wouldn't say that I was prepared either. So I just, didn't take no for an answer. And I just, I'm just stubborn that way. So no, the thing that I would say is pride is a killer. It really is. And you can't just, I hear this from so many veterans is they have to give me a shot because I served this, or I'm better because I did this, or what, or I made so much, because I was an E8 in the service and I'm not willing to take less than that. Well, kick pride aside, right? If you're moving on to a new phase of your life, it's a different lifestyle. They view values differently, right? You have to learn how the civilian side operates, and you might have to take a step back. More than likely you're going to, right? So put the pride aside, find out, what do you need? Sure, for yourself and your family, you got to live, right? But don't say that you're not willing to take something because you used to manage, a company of people and now you're not managing anybody. Who cares? Like, get into the industry you want to get into the job you want to get into, work on yourself to get to where you think you should be, but don't use it as an excuse to not start. So even if you got to take a step back, get into it, work on it. That would be my biggest thing.
Yeah. And David, you're crushing it, dude. And we see that all the time, right? So like, we'll hear from veterans all the time, like, well, I didn't take that job because it was entry level, or we got people that are like experts telling them, don't ever take a job that's entry level, or don't do lateral movements or something. Man, some of the best corporate decisions I ever made were lateral movements into positions where I would get higher viz or bigger results, or like, I would get more chances at bat to knock runs in. Like you've got to take the opportunities, and sometimes a lateral move is it. And here's the reality. For those of you who haven't been on the right side of the transition bang out here in the business arena with David and Jeremy and I, here's what we know that you don't. Okay. So that hustle that we're talking about, right? If you get in the door and they quickly realize that you are running circles around everybody else in the department, because here's a couple things in general. I'm not trying to like disparage or hurt anybody's feelings, but in an environment where you don't have to do what I say because you can quit anytime you want, and I don't have to let you be a slug because I can fire you anytime I want, which is most states in the union, right? At will work states, they call it. Mediocrity kind of rules the day. So most people are just doing what it says to do in their job description, just to the level it says to do it in their job description, and they're collecting a paycheck and punching out. And that's okay. It's an economical transaction. The boss said, do the thing. You're doing the thing. The boss gives you the paycheck. You don't have to do anything else. So when the vets get in there and they're kicking everybody's ass with one arm tied behind their back, here's what they know in the Civ Div. It's all time money. So if Jeremy figures out before I can give him a raise or give him a new title so he stays around when somebody throws more money or a new title at him, he's going to jump ship. So I tell vets all the time, hey man, get in there, kick a bunch of ass, and you won't be in that position longer than about 12 or 18 months. And it's anecdotal. I haven't ever done a research study. It's all anecdotal, but I've said that to probably 36 cats, and every single one of them is now a chief of operations or a junior vice president, or one guy went from a cruise line to Coca-Cola to USAA because they just kept, hey, that guy's a rock star. We need more rock stars. Let's throw 20,000 extra bucks at him and see if he jumps. Right? So just get in there and hustle and let your reputation and your results speak for themselves. And man, they'll figure out that if they don't give you more money or give you a commensurate title, man, you might go play for another team. They'll take care of you. Right? I mean, have you guys found that or not?
I got a real world example. I'll let you answer first, Jeremy, but
No, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, based on the people that I've talked to, it's and my own experience is when you produce more than they expect you to produce, they can't help but notice. They can't turn it off. They're like, oh my gosh, I've got to get more of that. And let me put this person in the position where they can, they're now their performance is matching their duties and responsibilities. So, start out as a janitor, but you clean the entire building. You're like, hey, you were only supposed to do the bottom floor. Like, I got this, right? We'll make him the head of janitors, and then he just keeps going from there. It can't help but flourish. And I even saw that in my military career. I mean, that is one of the major reasons that I moved up. And this is for all the active duty guys. It's initiative, right? Do a little bit more than you're asked to do. That's not rocket science. That's not secret. That's just real. If you're doing more than you're asked to do, people start noticing. So I'm deferring to you, David. You knock it out the park. I teed it
Yeah,
up.
so I'll give you a real world example from my own life here. So I told you I went into the corporate world right after I got active duty, right? And then I switched to the nonprofit side of the house. So I started working with a veteran nonprofit, and I got in. Now this is a position that required a bachelor's degree that I didn't have at the time, but I applied anyway, right? So I got into an entry level role as an employment specialist because, well, shoot, that's what I used to do, right? So within 3 months, the person that used to manage the grants, so these are all federal grants that we worked off of, she went out on maternity leave. Nobody was willing to do the extra work while she was gone because they didn't think they were going to get any extra pay or recognition. So they all backed away, and I jumped at it. I said, yeah, give it to me. I want to learn this stuff. Let's go. So I took over. She never came back. I got the job by default, right? And then within the year, I was basically managing the grant for multiple states at that point and running teams already. And then once I got that federal grants experience, and then I got my bachelor's degree and I was in school for my MBA. And that's when I got approached from the corporate side of the house. And that's when they said, hey, if you can do federal grants, can you do federal contracting? And that's when I landed a 6-figure job. So I went from 40 grand a year to 3 times that within 3 years.
And gang, so in case you missed it, I mean, listen to what he just said. Yeah, I did more than I was asked. Yes, nobody else did it. And oh, by the way, it wasn't me telling them, hey, here's the value I'm going to bring you. They literally saw it. And none of them wanted it because mediocrity rules today. Well, I'm not going to get paid to do extra. I'm not doing extra. That's not my job. That's not the way we've always done it. David got in there and kicked ass and cleaned it up. And here's what's amazing. As he's telling the story, I'm thinking, man, those people must feel so embarrassed, man. That's got to suck. They're probably doing the same job they were doing. Their prospects have probably gotten no better. And David is just moving up the ranks. And I guarantee you, they're in the break room. Some of them are in the break room bitching about how lucky David got, when really it was, no, I just got a little bit more hustle than you did. And I applied it. And they saw it. Like Jeremy said, it's visible. You know it when you see it, extra effort, and you know it when you don't. When you see it and you're a manager and you got 50 people under you and one of them is cranking and the other 49 are mailing it in, man, I'm betting on the horse that's cranking. You know what I mean? It's human nature. So what an amazing anecdote that you shared with us, dude. No, I took it because nobody else wanted it. And then I cleaned up with them.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. When you chamber the initiative round into the rifle and fire it, it's amazing what happens. So, hey, I know you said it a couple times, so I missed it the first few times, and I just want to kind of circle back before we run out of time. You were a corporate recruiter at one point. Now, you did it in the military and you did it in corporate world. I know there's some differences. So one, I'd like to just touch on some of the differences that you were looking for. But two, what are some key nuggets that made the ones that you grabbed stick out to you and you went and got them?
Are you saying on the corporate recruiting side of the house?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we were in a very niche industry, so we only recruited in supply chain and really only for a couple positions. So we picked, very laser focused type of role and built the business around it. So, and it wasn't me that built the business. I just came on as the recruiter, but the guy that owned the company was so laser focused with his, everything. He was just on point with everything. And he taught me everything from the ground up. Really it was my job because I owned like half the country within the first year. So I took everything from the Mississippi West, and it was my job to not only find new clients, so find companies that needed talent, right? and find out what their needs were, then go out there and find the talent too. So that way we would kind of place our own people into the roles that we were recruiting for. And the way that we found them, honestly, was LinkedIn. We used LinkedIn for almost everything. LinkedIn and referrals. So referrals are something where, if you do right by others, it will come back and benefit you down the road. And you can hold that true for almost anything in life. And I'm not just talking work related stuff. I'm talking almost anything. If you just keep helping enough people get what they want, you will get what you want. And I think Zig Ziglar said it. I truly believe in it. It's something out there. So it's like, referral based thing, take care of the people. But yeah, that's how I found it. Like, it was really LinkedIn. We would do searches, and it was certain key criteria that we would look for. Then they would populate. We'd give them a call. If they seemed like they were a good candidate, we'd prep them and present them to the company. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing were like those certifications. Like if we needed somebody with a PNP,
Yeah.
that was one of the criteria we were looking for. So basically just make sure your profile understand the platform. So understand how LinkedIn works and understand how people use LinkedIn to find talent, because you can put whatever you want out there. If it's not in the right place, they're never going to see it. So you really have to understand the systems that the people use. And it's the same thing about anything in business. Like, use the terminology they're using, use the systems they're using, use all of that stuff to the benefit, learn how they manipulate it to put yourself in the right position above other people who are probably even more qualified, honestly. But if you understand the game better, you're going to put yourself in the position to win. So, be a nerd, learn the game.
Great advice. Great advice. Learn the language, right? The language of that, niche industry that you want to be a part of. Use that language so that lawyers sound like lawyers, doctors sound like doctors, right? So, I mean, it's using and leveraging that knowledge to get what you want, but also, like you said, is use the tools that are available. It's a global reach, right? LinkedIn is out there. And if you know how to leverage it as a tool, then you can and be more visible. So that's the tactical advice for the audience out there, is learn how to use LinkedIn to help you get visibility from people like David Jones in the world looking for, that purple squirrel, and they can find you, right? I mean, that's the idea. If you can't find them, you can't find them.
And the other thing I'll add to that is, if you're the type that should, and everybody should be proactive, if you're looking for work, why should you sit back and wait for someone to fish you out of the ocean? Like, why wouldn't you go and attack what you wanted? You should be applying for the jobs that you want. And my advice to that is, don't cast a large net. Be laser focused. Cater your resume for the exact job that you want. And then when you find the job that you want at a specific company, research the company, research their history, know their language, know what they're looking for, look at their job description, tie their job description to your resume. Take the time to write a cover letter, right? And instead of applying for 100 jobs and hoping you get one, and maybe it's a company you might or might not eventually like, find the companies that you do want, only apply to 5, but have it be a killer application. That's my advice.
Oh, great advice. Great advice. I mean, strategically look at it, operationally hone it, tactically build it. I mean, I think people will hear that message. And I know even for my own, I thought, okay, shotgun fire. I mean, because that's what you're told in like TAPS and everything else is, hey, just get as many resumes as you can out there, whether they're quality or not. Focus on the quality and laser, like, what was it, Jack Stack's book, Doctor? With the, you can go out into the sun and get a sunburn. That's the worst thing that's going to happen to you. But you get a honed laser, it's going to drill a hole right through you. So I really dig that.
Yeah. And the last piece of advice I'll give people about resumes is, first of all, I hate resumes. I don't think that they do the right job to tell the picture. Like, we use them, like the system uses them as the be all end all, whether or not someone's going to be a good candidate. But I would challenge anybody to look at a resume and tell me whether or not they were actually a good employee. I would throw that out to any HR person, but I digress. What I will say, though, about resumes is, you will also have to build your resume for 3 different levels of people. You have to build your resume at first for that lower level HR person that's screening these things, right? Because the hiring manager isn't looking at your resume first, online or when you apply. It's that HR person that doesn't even know what that job is. So if the job is a technical job, They have no idea what it is, what the terminology is. They're looking for, they want somebody with a PMP, they want somebody with a bachelor's degree, they want someone with experience in X, Y, or Z. And if they don't see it jump out to them on the resume, your resume goes in the trash and it never gets past that lower level HR person. So build your resume to show that you're looking for these 5 things that are a must have and these 5 things that are, nice to have. Put as many of those in your resume that just jump out. Literally, don't make them find them, have them jump out to them, spell it out. That's stage 1. Stage 2, now get technical, because now it might get to the hiring manager, and the hiring manager wants to see, is this person skilled? Do they have the knowledge, or am I going to have to babysit them? Can I just plop them in place and they can start working and they're not going to take much management from me at all? That's what they're looking for. So build the second part for that. And lastly is, everybody that comes on board has to get signed off by the CEO, the CFO, some bean counter type that cares about the bottom line of the company. So then have your stats for what you've done before, not, oh, I managed 300 people. That's great. So what? Like literally everything you put on your resume, at the end of it, say, so what? Right? Because it should really be, I took a budget of this and I did this, or I improved retention from, this percent to this percent, or I saved this to, I did this project, which saved us $38,000 in this, or tie it to an actual number, a hard statistical, something that's real, tangible, number for the bean counter. If you can hit all 3 of those in your resume, your job, your ability to get hired just, multiplied by like times 20.
And I just got to reiterate for those, because it went fast. It's live TV, right? And David is just spitting good stuff here, right? But let me rewind a little bit so you hear this. Okay, you need to make sure that every statement you make on your resume has a reason for being on your resume. And you don't need to make it a 10 out of a 10 on a mental treadmill for the person trying to figure out whether you're the next hire or not. At the end of every bullet, say, so what? Why would anybody reading that bullet care? Because if every one of them ends with a so what, if the statement is the answer to the here's what value you're going to get when you hire me, you probably are going to get the interview. And that's what the resume is for. The resume doesn't get you the job. The resume gets you the interview where you go in there and, put on a magic show and get the job, right? You go in there and shoot fireworks. So yeah, if you missed it, gang, that's right there. And what I love about what David is sharing with us is, one of my early mentors, I was breaking into a whole new profession. I was coming out of the darkest part of my transition. And it was the first glimpse of, wow, I can do something else besides clean carpets and sling booze. Like I've got a chance at being a business guy here. He said that luck is nothing more than doing all the hard work that nobody else sees to be prepared so that when an opportunity presents itself. So back to your anecdote with, nobody else wanted to do the work. You stepped up and did the work. Being prepared so that when the opportunity presents itself, you can step right into the arena, grab that thing by the horns, and you come out on top, right? So David is literally, gang, telling you how to be one of the folks that everybody else is going to sit around and say, wow, isn't that guy or gal so lucky? Like everything always goes well for them because you're hustling your tail off in advance. You're doing these tactical things. People see the product of the preparation you put in. You appear super lucky because you're killing it.
Yeah.
It's
free.
Well said. David dropped it. It's free. So listen to this episode twice, gang. I'm telling you.
Way to unpack it. I mean, I love the 3 levels too. I mean, you can't beat that. If you work it out for that HR, then the manager that you're going to work under, hey, what does that mean? What's valuable to them? Looking at it from their perspective is crucial when you're writing those quote unquote bullets on your resume. It's like it should read for each one of those 3 audience. So Doc, what way to unpack it, way to put it in there. As we wrap this up, what's the last bit of advice you might want to give out, David?
Well, I guess we'll just stay on this topic, because I think, getting veterans hired, is a true passion of mine. So I would say once you do get through that resume phase and you get that interview, like Doc was saying, the biggest thing with the interview, number 1, learn everything you can about that company when you go in and do not ask any questions that are public information on their website. Period. Don't ask when the company was formed. Don't ask who the CEO is. Don't ask any of that stuff. And every question that you should ask, you should have some sort of insight to say, hey, I realized that you guys were, you got established in 1960 and you've grown to here, and you've gone into this market. What's next for you? So show some insight first that you understand, and then ask the question. Don't just ask a blind question without some insight first.
That's a good one.
And that takes practice.
Dude, David, you're gonna have to come back, brother. You did such a great job, brother. You're gonna have to do another appearance, man.
Yeah. Doc, anything parting shot wise?
No, man. I want what he just said to sink in. That's beautiful.
Right. Yeah.
Just rewind this episode and listen to it again. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. We probably should have started there. We could have just unpacked the interview process and everything else. But obviously, if you get the resume down, then you get into the interview, and then we'll, we've got an interview skills course that you can take. And we've got a couple other folks out there that have taken it, and it's just come to vets2pm.com. We'll take care of you, or we'll get David back on the show. So we'll do interview specials. But David, any last shots? Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you dropping all this wisdom on us and in our nation.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is, don't be scared to ask for help out there. Our whole network is out there to help each other, right? So leverage it, use it. Same thing with your benefits. I was one of the worst offenders at first. I didn't want to apply for disability. I didn't want to do that stuff. I'm not deserving. Somebody else needs it more, all that crap. It takes a while to get over that. Get over it, use it, leverage it. You earned it, right? And just use everything that you can. It's there for you, whether you use it or not. So might as well use it.
Man, love it. Leverage knowledge and kill pride. That's
easier said than done.
That's the sentiment. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks everybody for tuning in. What a show. Thank you for tuning in and spending a bit of time with us at the Military Transition Academy, powered by Vets2PM. If we piqued your interest, but you want more details, please head over to the website vets2pm.com and see if we can help prepare you for a better tomorrow or a future meaningful and lucrative career.